Some people really do seem to get all the luck, don't they? Whether it's winning huge sums of money, surviving natural and mundane disasters, or avoiding something that could have meant your ultimate demise. Is it fate, accidental, or are some people simply born lucky? Today we're going to look at 10 people who defied all the odds in one way or another and got extremely lucky. Number 10. Virginia Fike. Winning the lottery is often described as a once-in-a-lifetime event. Well, for one lucky woman, it happened twice. In one day, Virginia Fike, 44 of Berryville, won two $1 million Powerball prizes with tickets bought on the same day, from the same store, and for the same lottery drawing. And according to Virginia, it was an accident. She was planning to buy one Mega Millions ticket and one Powerball ticket, but accidentally got two Powerballs with the same set of numbers, based on her parents' wedding date. Fike matched every number except the Powerball. Lottery officials said she is the first person to win two $1 million prizes in the same Powerball drawing. What are the odds of that happening? Before we move on, leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be the first watching new episodes. Number 9. TSUTOMU YAMAGUCHI. Some 260,000 people survived the atomic bomb attacks on Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II. But Japanese engineer TSUTOMU YAMAGUCHI was one of the very few who endured the horror of both blasts and lived to tell the tale. TSUTOMU YAMAGUCHI was preparing to leave Hiroshima when the atomic bomb fell. The 29-year-old naval engineer was on a 3-month-long business trip for his employer, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, and August 6, 1945 was supposed to be his last day in the city. Looking skyward, he saw the American B-29 bomber soar over the city and drop a small object connected to a parachute. Suddenly, the sky erupted in a blaze of light, which Yamaguchi later described as resembling the lightning of a huge magnesium flare. He had just enough time to dive into a ditch before an ear-splitting boom rang out. The shock wave that accompanied it sucked Yamaguchi from the ground, spun him in the air like a tornado, and sent him hurtling into a nearby potato patch. He had been less than 2 miles from ground zero. Yamaguchi returned to work a few days later as he thought his skills would be needed after the bomb, even though he was quite badly burnt. The atomic bomb that hit Nagasaki was even more powerful than the one dropped on Hiroshima. But as Yamaguchi would later learn, the city's hilly landscape and a reinforced stairwell had combined to muffle the blast inside the office. His bandages were blown off and he was hit by yet another surge of cancer-causing radiation. But he emerged relatively unhurt. For the second time in 3 days, he'd had the misfortune of being within 2 miles of a nuclear explosion. For the second time, he'd been fortunate enough to survive. After fleeing from the skeleton of the Mitsubishi building, Yamaguchi rushed through a bomb-ravaged Nagasaki to check on his wife and son. He feared the worst when he saw a section of his house had been reduced to rubble. But he soon found both and sustained only superficial injuries. His wife had been out looking for burnt ointment for her husband, and when the explosion came, she and the baby had taken refuge in a tunnel. It was yet another strange twist of fate. If Yamaguchi hadn't been hurt at Hiroshima, his family might have been killed at Nagasaki. He was one lucky guy, right? Number 8. Harrison ODJEGBA OKENE. Harrison ODJEGBA OKENE survived 3 days in an air bubble underwater at the bottom of the Atlantic after his boat sank. Entombed at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean in an upended tugboat, all Harrison ODJEGBA OKENE had was an ever-dwindling supply of oxygen in an air pocket. The Nigerian cook said he knew if he couldn't carry on much longer as his air supply was almost gone. As the temperature dropped to freezing, OKENE, dressed only in boxer shorts, recited the last psalm his wife had sent by text message. To this day, OKENE believes his rescue after 72 hours underwater at a depth of 30 meters is a sign of divine deliverance. The other 11 seamen aboard the boat all died. Divers sent to the scene were looking only for bodies, not survivors, and couldn't believe it when they saw Harrison on the underwater camera waving his hand for help. Was it divine intervention, or was OKENE just incredibly lucky? Number 7. Joan Ginther. Joan R. Ginther, 63, from Texas, won multiple million-dollar payouts on the lottery. First, she won $5.4 million. Then a decade later, she won $2 million. Then 2 years later, $3 million. And in the summer of 2010, she hit a $10 million jackpot. The odds of this have been calculated at 1 in 18 septillion. And luck like this could only come once every quadrillion years. Although Miss Ginther now lives in Las Vegas, she won all 4 of her lotteries in Texas. 3 of her wins, all in 2-year intervals, were by scratch-off tickets bought at the same store. It has been questioned if Miss Ginther had found a way to cheat the system, but according to the residents of Bishop, Texas, they seem to believe God was behind it all. The Texas Lottery Commission said that Miss Ginther must have been born under a lucky star and that they don't suspect foul play. That's some lucky star to be born under. Number 6. Julianne Kopke. Julianne Kopke was flying over the Peruvian rainforest with her mother when her plane was hit by lightning. She survived a 2-mile fall and found herself alone in the jungle. Aged just 17, it was Christmas Eve 1971, and as the plane was flying, the plane entered into a really dark cloud. 10 minutes later, it was obvious that something was very wrong. The plane hit very heavy turbulence. It was jumping up and down. Parcels and luggage were falling from the locker. Julianne said she saw a bright light come from the engine, which was lightning striking the plane. The plane hurtled nose first into the Amazon jungle, and Julianne was thrown from her seat and free fell to the ground. The crash killed 91 people, all 6 of its crew and 85 of its 86 passengers. It is the deadliest lightning-struck disaster in history. Julianne, who was still strapped to her seat the entire time, fell 2,800 meters into the Amazon rainforest. She survived the fall and was then able to walk through the jungle for 11 days until being rescued by local lumbermen. The odds against a young girl surviving a plane crash and surviving in the jungle alone for 11 days is immense. A documentary film has since been made called Wings of Hope. Number 5. Maarten de Jonge. Dutch cyclist Maarten de Jonge cheats death twice after changing flights from both Malaysia Airlines MH17 and MH370. Both the Malaysian airline passenger jets were involved in international aviation disasters over a period of 4 months. Maarten de Jonge, 29, had to travel around the world to compete for Malaysia's Terengganu cycling team, and in doing so, he had 2 extraordinary near misses. He had been planning to travel on flight MH370, the Malaysia jet which vanished, and which remains missing somewhere in the Indian Ocean. De Jonge had been due to compete in a race in Taiwan and decided to take a different flight an hour earlier that did not include a stopover in Beijing. His second near miss, flight MH17, the Boeing 777 that was shot down over Ukraine, killed all of the 300 passengers on board. The cyclist said that he had only decided to swap flights at the last minute, after discovering that traveling via Frankfurt the following day would prove cheaper. We wonder if he still flies after this, or if Maarten feels lucky and knows his good fortune will always protect him from disasters. Number 4. RESHMA BEGUM. First came the collapse. At 9 a.m. as the day started, a ripping, tearing sound, clouds of choking dust, the screams of colleagues, and finally, silence. Then came fire, rain, and 16 long days in the darkness under the rubble, surrounded by the decaying corpses of her friends and colleagues. RESHMA BEGUM was a victim of a factory collapse, the Rana Plaza, which was situated in an industrial zone on the outskirts of Dhaka in Bangladesh. About 2/3 of the more than 3,000 workers in the building managed to flee, but as many as 1,500 were buried by rubble. With an official death toll standing at 1,050, relatives and rescue workers had given up hope of finding anyone else alive. RESHMA survived these 16 days by breathing through a pipe from inside the wreckage for air. She told rescuers she found food by scavenging for biscuits in the rucksacks of dead colleagues and drinking rainwater. Her rescue was hailed as a miracle, as she is the only person known to have survived buried under rubble for such a long time. One might say it is good luck as the accident happened to her, but to survive in such awful conditions when so many others had died must show there was some element of luck on her side. Number 3. Frane Selic. Frane Selic is a Croatian mom who has allegedly escaped death 7 times and afterward won the lottery, prompting journalists to dub him the world's luckiest man. Frane Selic had survived a plane crash, a train derailment, a bus that crashed into icy water, a car that caught fire, a car accident with a lorry that forced him over a cliff, and then he got knocked down by a bus. Each time, Frane walked away with only minor injuries. 20 years later, in 2003, and after no other brushes with death, Frane won $960,000 on the lottery. He is still going strong today at the ripe old age of 91. Imagine the stories he got to tell his grandchildren. Number 2. Edwin E. Robinson. In 1980, a 62-year-old man blinded in a traumatic accident regained his sight after he was struck by lightning near his home. The doctor confirmed that Edwin E. Robinson, a former truck driver, could see for the first time since he became blind as a result of a highway accident. Robinson was knocked to the ground by lightning when he took shelter beneath a popular tree near his house in the Portland suburb during a thunderstorm. Robinson later stated that it sounded like someone snapped a whip. The next thing I knew, I came to face down in the water at the foot of the tree, he recalled. His wife said he apparently was unconscious for 20 minutes. Weak and dehydrated, he returned to his bedroom for a nap. My legs were like rubber. My whole body felt like it was trembling, he said. The lightning also broke his hearing aid. When I got up in the evening, I was sitting in the chair in the front room. I could see the plaque on the wall, and I could see the clock. But the clock kept fading in and out. He said his wife found him in the bedroom. "I can see you. I can see you. I can see the house. I can read," she quoted him as saying. She also said he was able to hear perfectly without his hearing aid. Dr. William F. Taylor examined Robinson and confirmed he had regained both sight and hearing, calling it one for the books. Taylor said the rubber-soled shoes Robinson was wearing when struck by lightning may have saved his life. Number 1. Bill Morgan. Australian Bill Morgan is a man who truly defied the odds. He cheated death, surviving a horrible car crash and heart attack before falling into a coma, and proceeded to win the lottery not once but 2 times. He went from nearly losing it all to gain more than he could ever imagine. Back in 1998, Australian truck driver Bill Morgan was involved in a truck accident that nearly crushed him. He miraculously survived the crash but suffered a heart attack as a result. He was then rushed to the emergency room and given a drug that triggered a severe allergic reaction in his body, ultimately causing his heart to stop beating. Bill Morgan had died, but in an amazing twist of fate, that was not the end for him. After being clinically dead for more than 14 minutes, Bill was revived but remained comatose. He was in a vegetative state for more than a week, and doctors advised his family to take him off life support. It's a good thing they didn't, though. Miraculously, after 12 days, Bill woke up and eventually made a complete recovery. A few months later, Bill bought a scratch ticket and won a car. Then he bought another one and scratched it off while being interviewed on live television and won $250,000. Imagine not just defeating death, but coming back from the dead and winning the lottery. Thanks for watching. Leave the comment down below and let us know what should we feature next. Don't forget to subscribe for new and upcoming episodes.